A demographic analysis of Lee District shows that 14% of our 122,000 residents don't have health insurance. 7% live below the federal poverty line, and for those of you who don't know, that's about $24,000 for a family of 4. Only 50% hold a college degree. While these socioeconomic impacts aren't unique to Lee, they must be addressed in making policy decisions to boost jobs and economic growth. In addition, equity of access to jobs, transportation, and education are especially challenging for households in poverty. My question, and I'll give you 2 minutes to answer this one, how would you focus our current budget to maintain the local safety net while also incentivizing future economic growth and addressing equity? James.
Well, thank you for the first 2-minute question. Well, I think we did a great first step with the General Assembly members by Medicaid expansion. That helps us in the county. We could never do that alone as a county, even as rich as we are, we just do not have the funds. The equity issue, talking about jobs and access to that, we have a great plan that we've passed recently, Embark Richmond Highway, which is transformative to the Richmond Highway corridor. What that will do long term is put bus rapid transit down from the Huntington Metro all the way down to Fort Belvoir, the Tully Gate. 2 dedicated lanes from North Kings Highway down. In between Huntington Metro and Fort Belvoir, we'll have central business districts in which we will be putting affordable housing locked in those central business districts. What we'll be doing there is allowing developers to come in and build higher density than what's allowed right now, but in exchange for that, they need to provide affordable housing for those who could be displaced as Amazon moves in to Arlington County, as Virginia Tech opens up their campus in the city of Alexandria. We'll have more and more pressure on the real estate prices up and down the corridor. This is one thing that we can do as a county. Look at this and look to do this in downtown Springfield for Lee District. Do the same thing to lock in affordable housing in downtown Springfield, bring more disposable income there because you'll have different types of housing stock in downtown Springfield. Countywide, it comes down to priorities and money. Our priorities should be, how do we help the poorest of the poor, our seniors, and how do we get that done? And most of that comes down to funding, and it comes from the general fund. And I would support providing more funding for these priorities.
Kelly, you're next.
Thank you. I think it begins with where are our priorities. Where we invest our money determines what are our priorities. When we focus on a plan that is more of an educate, train, and employ, we have created a pathway, a real viable pathway of how we take our current residents, our students, our underemployed, and prepare them for the most needed jobs. We have to have, it's been a real issue of equity. Let me go back. For 20 years, as I said, haven't really seen much going on in the Route 1 corridor. We've seen a lot happening in Tysons. We've seen a lot happening in Kingstown. Some of the most affluent areas have received the most attention and biggest support from economics and economic development. But what we can do is we can expand. We can expand where we give our focus because there's still lots of room for growth. And Lee District is the biggest potential of what we can do to change people's lives and become one Lee District. We can have a educate, train, and employ where it's already started at the old Mount Vernon High School. And what we need to do is work more closely with the employers and say, what do you guys need in your labor? And we need to work with them closely, start training them as a partnership, whether it's a public-private partnership or an informal, because we don't always need policies to start getting the work done. You don't always need to be in office before you can start doing work. We can start now working and identifying employers. We talk about Google, we talk about Amazon, but we can work with these individuals and these individual employers and find out where there's a shortage and start creating a pipeline within our own district to fill these jobs. Nova's ready. They need help creating that curriculum of what that curriculum is going to be to educate, train, and employ our future job. I lost my train of thought. Our future employees. But that's what I think we can do. Educate, train, and employ. Thank you.
Michelle, can you just read the last sentence of the question?
You want the question?
Just last
How would
bit.
you focus our current budget to maintain the local safety net while incentivizing future economic growth and addressing equity?
Okay. So I want to say that I don't think there's a disconnect between the two. I think that the way we choose to invest in our social safety net can be a real investment to turn into economic growth and equity. I think when we invest in child care subsidies and pre-K, universal pre-K, right now there was a 30-year study that they just finished in North Carolina that shows that if you invest in disadvantaged children between the ages of birth and 5, you get a 13% return on your investment. I mean, all of us would hope for any kind of a return like that on any of our investments. So it's not just universal pre-K, it's not just looking at the 3-year-olds and the 4-year-olds, it's changing that perception to birth to 5, because it helps working parents stay in their careers. It helps women and men not have to step back from their careers for a few years because they can't afford childcare, they can't afford to take care of their children, and they earn more. The 13% investment wasn't just on the parents, it was on the children and the parents, and these children are now 35 years old. They're healthier, they're wealthier, they earn a higher income, their parents earn a higher income, they're better educated. We need to do that. The proof is there, and we need to invest in that, especially in that social space. Also, vocational training. Not everyone is cut out for a 4-year college. We need to be investing in vocational training in high school, and also with people with disabilities who are often the most underemployed, and we need them right now in our workforce with the really low unemployment. We need to find certificate programs, for example, in cybersecurity and IT, and create these programs that will help train our workforce. We need to have the most experienced, educated, work-ready workforce, and that will bring businesses in, especially if the workforce can afford to live where they work, because then you have a happy employee base. You have better retention. So I think we have to just be thoughtful and careful on how we invest. I'm on the Adult and Community Education Advisory Council for the school board, which Tammy Koufax appointed me to. Thank you. And that's what we've been talking about, is finding out what are the vocations that we need to be training our labor force.
Yeah, this gets harder when people have taken some of your answers, so I do recognize the difficulty here, but I'm going to try to add a couple of different ones. So I think that the important thing is that we are focused on training. So we're really trying to help people get a leg up. We're trying to help them get trained up so they can get qualified for different positions. So what I would say is we need to work with the trades as well. So think about this. There are positions as pipe fitters, there are positions as welders, and a lot of people don't recognize that those positions pay extraordinarily well. I mean, people can make in excess of $60,000, $70,000 a year with the proper certifications, and what I'd like to do is to provide a pipeline into some of those trade positions for those who might not, as Larissa said, go on to college, because I think we have to be sensitive to the point that everyone's not going to be able to do that. And what we've learned, and this is very fascinating, there are kids who have gone off to college and gotten significant student debt, couldn't find a decent job, and now they're in a trades program so they can get a job to help pay off loans that they now have to pay for an education that they're not using. So I think we've got to be honest in having conversations with families and kids about this and letting them know about the opportunities. And there might be a way for us to address some of this. As a person who worked on the historic Richmond Highway corridor, helping families, no person that I worked with wanted to be on public assistance. No person I ever met wanted to be poor. And I got to tell you, it's hard when you look in the eyes of these individuals to recognize that they're doing their best, but they need a little help. So it's our responsibility, and I would argue this is a value that I learned from my grandparents. You give back to others. You have a responsibility to give back because you've been helped, you've been assisted in your life. And that's what I've been trying to do in my career, and the work that I've been involved with, is to serve others. So I would approach this in the same way, making sure we're putting funding into programs that would allow for that connectivity. Thank you.